Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Extra Points. Hopefully, Travis, the Packers make plenty of them coming up on Sunday when they play the Giants in an NFC playoff game at the tundra of Lambeau Field, as I'm sure it's nowhere near frozen with this unseasonable weather. We'll talk about that game and the three others in the NFL playoffs coming up in a bit. But first, locally, the winter sports season well underway, and that means some storylines are starting to unfold. Travis, looking ahead, what are you looking forward to coming up this week?
For a couple of area boys basketball teams, I think they've shown that they're kind of in a conference race, and I want to see if they can kind of sustain that going out for the rest of the season. One of them is the Ryle boys. They're 4-0 in conference. They're in a three-way tie with Fall River and Deerfield for first place. Be interested to see if they can kind of play with those teams. They're going to get their first chance Friday night when they host Deerfield. And then next week, January 19th, they're at Fall River. So pretty soon we're going to learn something about Ryle boys and how they stack up with the other teams in the conference. For Lodi, they just started conference play last night and beat Lake Mills 57-47. I think it's pretty clear that Lodi is the best team in the Northern Capital Conference, but they have lost two of their big dogs to injury. Jordan Shea's out a couple weeks with an ankle injury. And Chris Sefrud might be gone for the season. Maybe he can come back late. But either way, they're going to miss some time, obviously. And those are the two leading scorers. Can they kind of still compete and win the conference without them? I think they definitely can, but it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I was at that game on Tuesday. The Blue Devils took care of Lake Mills, mostly with the second half effort. And you're right, it will be very interesting to see. They certainly looked up to the task. Lake Mills entered that game with just a couple losses. They had votes in the Associated Press Division III poll. So it was a challenge for Lodi. They stepped up to it with a couple players out. So it will be, like you said, interesting to see if they can maintain that elite level here through a couple of key injuries. That's a look ahead. As far as what impressed me this last week, one team that doesn't figure to be in the conference chase in the South Central is the Westfield boys basketball team, but they hosted Marquette County rival Montello on Friday night, and they came away with a win in overtime. And the thing that really impressed me most was there were opportunities in that game in the fourth quarter and in overtime for Westfield to fold and Montello to come away with the win. Westfield, especially at the free throw line, really did not do well, but they were able to make up for that on defense and with a couple key baskets and come away with just their second win of the season. And for a team that, by the end of the year probably won't be in the conference chase, maybe they'll, get hot and get an upset in the tournament. This is the kind of win over a rival that for those kids, they'll be able to look back at and remember well. So kudos to Westfield's boys basketball team for an impressive win over Montello on Friday night. And speaking of the Pioneers and trailblazing, there's 8 teams left in the NFL playoffs, like I said, who are looking to pave their way to Super Bowl 46 in Indianapolis, Travis. Starting with the Packers, who had the most regular season wins out of any of them. They'll be hosting the Giants, like I said. And for the Giants, I think it really has to be, just a very nice matchup. They have to be salivating at the chance to get another opportunity to beat Green Bay. 38-35, they lost on a last-second field goal the first time around in December, and so they feel like they can compete with Green Bay. This Giants team is an awful lot like that 2007 team that made it to the Super Bowl and beat and upset the Patriots. They run the ball really well. They get after the passer, and those are really two things that the Chiefs, the only team to beat the Packers this year, were able to do. They ran the ball, controlled the clock, and they got after Rodgers. So I like the Giants' chances to compete in this game and be in it late. I just don't think that Green Bay will lose. I think that they're going to be pretty motivated now that the playoffs are here. With the kind of success that they had throughout the regular season, that they were gearing up for this Super Bowl run. And so I think that it's here now. You're just going to see a more motivated, a little sharper Packers team, and they're going to advance to the NFC Championship game. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the whole story of the game is going to be, I think, can the Giants put pressure on Aaron Rodgers with their four-man rush? They've been able to do it. They did it really well against Atlanta last weekend in the playoffs. But the Packers, for the first time since week 3, have their 5 starting offensive linemen out there, and if they can slow that rush and give Rodgers time, he'll pick apart that secondary. The Giants don't particularly have a strong secondary, and if Rodgers has got time and receivers got a little extra time to get open, I think it's going to be lights out for the Giants. But if they can get that rush home, and Rodgers is going to have to rush his throws a little bit, and kind of like you said against Kansas City, that's kind of how the Packers were slowed a little bit. So that'd be the whole story. Can they stop that rush? And I think they're up to it. Also, they're playing on the grass in Lambeau instead of the turf in New York, which might make a little bit of difference. Yeah, I'll pick the Packers. I think it'll be close, but they'll win.
That game is on Sunday evening, 3:30, I believe, start at Lambeau Field. So those two teams, when they kick off, will know who's going to be waiting for them in the NFC Championship game. The Saints go to San Francisco on Saturday night in a really intriguing matchup from this standpoint. The Saints, as you saw on last Saturday and all season, really can really put up a lot of yards, especially through the air. And the 49ers were one of the best defenses in the NFL this year. So I think the question here is, can the Saints take that show on the road in maybe a little bit windy, foggy weather? You never know what it's going to be like there in San Francisco. Can they take that show on the road and beat a really good defense in the same way they've kind of done to some teams at home? I think they will win this game. I just don't think they're going to do it with the same kind of offense that they've been doing. I think they're going to find a way, maybe something like 24-20, something like that. I think it's going to be a close game, but the Saints, I think, just have too much for that kind of up-and-coming but very talented 49ers defense. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you look at the Saints, obviously they put up a lot of points this year, but you look at who they've done it against, and they really haven't gone up against an elite defense all year. And so this will be the first time they do that. And just the fact that it's in San Francisco against this defense, I just have a feeling that the Niners are going to pull this out. It definitely will be low scoring, or it needs to be if the Niners are going to win. And I think they'll slow them down enough. And I just think if it was in the Dome in New Orleans, Saints all the way. But I just have a feeling that it's going to be the Niners and that defense that pull it out.
And a lot of people think the Saints are playing as well as anybody in the NFL right now. And remember back to Week 1, the Packers and the Saints had that incredibly entertaining NFL opener. So if in fact it does end up the Packers and the Saints in the NFC Championship game, you probably couldn't hope or pick for a more entertaining matchup of two offensive-minded teams. So that's in the NFC. In the AFC, really up for grabs, I think. I don't know if there's, a lot like the NFC, I guess, but I don't know if there's one team that has been all that dominant this season. The Patriots host the Broncos in one game. As much as I'd like to pick the Broncos, Tim Tebow, I think it's a great story, and I do think that they're going to go to New England, the Broncos, and play a good game, keep it close. Tom Brady hasn't won a playoff game since the 2007 AFC title game. 4 years, 2 playoff losses in there. He's too good to keep that streak going. It's in Foxborough. I think the Patriots will win that game. And then in the other one, Ravens host the Texans. A week ago, I did not think much of the Texans, but I guess having watched them play against a pretty good Bengals defense, I think Houston has the running game to move the ball effectively against the Ravens defense. And I think Houston's defense is younger and just as good as the Ravens defense. So if Houston can avoid, maybe mistakes from that young quarterback, I think they're going to have a pretty good shot to get the upset there, and you're going to see the Patriots and the Texans in the AFC Championship game. What do you think on the AFC?
The Patriots, Broncos, you got Tom Brady, who's been there, done that against Tim Tebow, who's, kind of unproven. He just keeps winning, but he sure doesn't do it very pretty. No, I don't see the Tim Tebow show going any farther. Take the Patriots. And as far as the other game, if your quarterback is TJ Yates and you're going to Baltimore, you're not going to win. That's pretty much all it's going to come down to. Even in the game against the Bengals last week, he threw some awful passes that should have been intercepted, and even probably pick sixes going back the other way, and the Bengals just dropped them. And so I think they were lucky that game wasn't closer. So I'm not taking Yates and our Texans to win. So I'll take Ravens and Patriots to win in the AFC.
As we sit here right now, Travis, it's Wednesday afternoon, and it's probably about 50, 55 degrees outside and sunny, and feels more like March or April. Doesn't really feel like playoff football weather in Wisconsin, but by the time you folks watch this, it's probably going to be about 25 degrees, and there's going to be a couple of inches of snow on the ground. So at least the mood will be getting right for football in January in Wisconsin. So hopefully, the 4 NFL playoff football games this weekend are entertaining, and the Packers, for those of you Packer fans out there, can get by the Giants. So until next week, everybody, take care. Thanks for joining us.